free from the forces holding you back. Get the life you deserve. Eliminate stress, reduce anxiety, decrease depression, and start living your full potential. Thousands have used Dr. Foojan Zeine's awareness integration theory, an evidence-based behavioral health breakthrough with incredible life-changing results. Getting rid of past trauma, having fulfilling relationships, increasing earnings, and living their best life. Now, the Foojan app is available to everyone. The app is Dr. Foojan Zeine's awareness integration theory in the palm of your hand. Download the Foojan app today.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Inner Voice Podcast, Heartfelt Chat with my guests and you beautiful listeners and viewers. I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine. I'm a psychotherapist, an author, and the originator of the Awareness Integration Therapy. And it's so great to be with all of you. And for all of you who have asked about some of the books that are out there for the Awareness Integration Therapy, here they are. Life Reset. Life Reset is a book that it not only explains the Awareness Integration Therapy, but also takes you through exercises in different areas of your life. And you can go through the exercises and see about your thought process, your attitude, what works, what doesn't, and gives you a lot of tools in how to create a fulfilled life. Then for all of you therapists and coaches, the Awareness Integration Therapy book, it's for all of you to know how and work with your clients through this amazing theory, which will be researched in different universities and across the globe. And the third one with two of my amazing colleagues, talk about intentional parenting for all the parents, grandparents, teachers, all of you who are interested in raising children, great citizens of the world. This book goes through every single stage of life, from infancy all the way to adulthood. And from the perspective of awareness integration, teaches you and shares with you in how to be with the developmental stages of your children and what to do, so you can create a fulfilling life for yourself and them and your relationship with them. For all of you who are psychotherapists or coaches and want to be certified in the awareness integration therapy and theory from across the world, please contact me. We have certification programs. Our coaching certification programs are amazing, and they can follow through with the ICF, and you have all the hours that you can be an international coach. Or if you are a psychotherapist, we go through details of how to be present, clear the past, move forward, integrate, and envision the tomorrow. So contact me, and love to talk to you. And if you become a certified coach or a therapist, you will also be in the awarenessintegration.com, and you will be also in Foojan.com for the app, so that you can also support people who do this with the app, and they can go ahead and contact you. If you love to just go on the app, it's Foojan.com. The app is Foojan. You can get it from your Apple Store or Google Play, and you could enjoy going through 31 areas of your life and go through the process. People have already found that they have 60% improvement in different areas of their life as they've gone through the app. Now, for this episode, I am so excited to talk to Dr. Jaime Pineda. He's a professor of cognitive science, neuroscience, and psychiatry at the University of California in San Diego. And he's the author of many widely cited papers in animal and human cognitive and systems neuroscience, as well as 2 books of poetry on mind-brain relationships, with an emphasis on spirituality, mysticism, environmentalism, and social activism. We're just going to talk about his latest book, Controlling Mental Chaos, Harnessing the Power of the Creative Mind. I had a really amazing conversation about how our original mind works as we're a baby and we're a child and just coming into the world, and then kind of what happens to our brain. And we kind of like lose the other one, or kind of that is put in the back, and another kind of a chaotic mental system starts. And there's a purpose into that. And we talk about the purpose of that mind and how that might kind of control us and, take over completely, and how we could create the balance of, having the original mind also be there and acknowledge it, how we could create balance in our life and some of the methodology. So I really had a great conversation with Dr. Pineda, and I hope that you enjoyed as much as I did and you learned as much as I did. Subscribe to this podcast, my YouTube channel, and connect with me through my website, FoojanZeine.com. If you want to know about the awareness integration, go to awarenessintegration.com. If you want to know about the app, go to Foojan.com. They're all available. You can connect with me with social media, all Dr. Foojan Zeine, or just email me, FoojanZeine at Gmail, or Dr. Foojan Zeine at Gmail. I love to hear from you. I love to connect with you. I love to know what's on your mind, what you like to know, what guests you want me to bring, what topics you want me to talk about. The show's for you. So I love to hear from you. Now, without further ado, here's Dr. Jaime Pineda.
Eliminate stress, reduce anxiety, and decrease depression. Dr. Foojan Zeine's awareness integration theory has helped thousands like you get incredible life-changing results. The Foojan app gives you her evidence-based treatment in the palm of your hand. Download today.
Well, Dr. Jaime Pineda, it is so nice to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I look forward to talking to you.
Beautiful. We're going to talk about your latest book that is Controlling Mental Chaos and Harnessing the Power of the Creative Mind. So the first thing that you actually talk about in your book is the original mind, which we do have as a baby. And for some reason, this original mind kind of changes, as you say, within 6 months or so. So can you share with us a little bit about what this original mind that every single human being and the babies are kind of born with? And then we kind of then look at how do we screw it up afterward. But let's go with that first.
That's a good place to start. Yeah. So the concept of original mind is actually comes from a Buddhist. It has a Buddhist origin. And they thought of it as that pristine sort of mind that we're born with, that we have as an infant, and that is unspoiled, but it's a wonderful, unencumbered kind of presence, if you will. And we now know from science that in fact, we come with a lot of skills. We used to think that babies were blank slates. And in fact, we now know that that's not the case. A lot of things that we're able to do from very young age. And, within the first couple of years, we're able to learn to walk and crawl and talk and learn about the world. And it's just an amazing set of abilities, right, that we have. And then, as you mentioned, gradually something happens, right? This pristine, original, creative mind changes. And so the question is, what happens? And philosophers, scientists have been, thinking about this for a long time. So from my perspective, I think what happens is that we begin to develop strategies to keep us safe. As infants, we're exposed to the world, and we need others to protect us. That kind of thing. So we're exposed to the dangers of the world. And if things begin to happen to us, we begin to organize a set of beliefs, a set of responses, a set of, how we see the world that eventually becomes what we think of as the ego, right? And the ego, I think of it as this set of responses to the dangers that the world sort of exposes us to. But they're a set of beliefs, they're a set of ideas, a set of responses, right? And the problem is that we begin to identify with those things. We think that that's who I am, this set of, you know, insecurity that I developed and the sense of loneliness that I developed, when in fact they're just things that evolved to protect us initially. And so I think this is what happens in my sort of philosophy. The ego sort of overshadows this creative original mind. But that original mind is still there, you know, there's some essence to it. And I think what we can do is begin to open up the ego and let this thing come through. And that's the idea of part of controlling your mental chaos, is actually thinking that the chaos that you create is really the ego responses to the world. But in fact, if we begin to think of these things as ideas and biases and things like that, we can let them go and open up this creative nature that we are. So
the way I hear it from you is that we are born with like a genetic set of skills that are there, right? Like the ability and the capacity of talking and walking and, you know, taking care of ourselves, and the perception and all of that capacity is there. The capability is there.
Yeah.
But there's also this kind of an awe with, like, ooh, you see a baby and it's like, ooh, experiences, oh my God, you know, and taking in experiences. And then obviously there's a perceptual concepts and taking that in and, you know, making meaning out of it and all of that. And what I hear you also say is that the filter in taking information is a protective measure. Obviously, we need to stay alive. So that filter has already been set up in our system, where as information shows up, we're attempting to survive it. And the ego becomes a survival game. And you're saying that after a while, the survival game takes over and we forget this kind of awe, creative coming in and taking in things and enjoying them and learning and expanding, because the protective measure of the ego as a survival mechanism is taking over, and then that becomes the mental chaos and holding that space and not allowing us to be free.
Oh, absolutely. That's beautifully said, you know, so that and the way I perceive the ego isn't as something that we need to essentially eradicate, because there is a function for the sense of, you know, relating things to ourselves, being responsive to things within, you know, our perspective of the world, et cetera. So you need a sense of self, a healthy sense of self. And so we need a certain kind of ego. The problem becomes when the ego becomes, as I said, the center of your life, the focus of how you react to everything. Then it becomes an unhealthy ego. And so understanding that this relationship between a healthy and an unhealthy ego, I think, is part of the beginning of a resolution to this problem that we're going to be talking about.
And can you share with us, from your perspective, how do we have this assessment? How do we realize as we're listening to ourselves? Obviously, somebody's always talking over there. But as we listen to this thing that's always talking, how do we assess that this construct that I'm hearing is an unhealthy ego, and this one that I'm hearing is an actual healthy ego? Like, if we're going to kind of discriminate between the two, have an assessment, how do we do that? How do we create this assessment?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question, and it's a hard one too, because, you know, entire systems have evolved to answer that question. And the way I see it is that part of the problem in our modern culture is that we have become over-reliant on the intellect as the single tool that addresses all these problems that we have. And what we need to realize is that this rational intellect, as wonderful as it is, as evolved as it is what gets us into this sort of egocentric kind of thinking. And so we need to find an alternative to the rational thinking mind. And so my approach is to say, well, there are other perspectives that one can take. And the one I expand on is this thing we call open awareness, witnessing attention, non-conceptual awareness, whatever you want to call it. It's the awareness that we can sit back and look at things and see them for what they are without trying to resolve anything. What I'm arguing is that this is a different kind of problem-solving capability that we have that we're underutilizing, because it allows us to get into solving problems, but from a different kind of perspective. It's more of a non-verbal, intuitive sense that we get from looking at the world in this sort of open awareness kind of way. But what it also allows us to do is to look at our responses, our rational mind, and say, that's not a proper thing to do, or that's an inappropriate behavior, right? So if we're able to utilize different strategies, the rational mind, but also this open awareness kind of mind, we begin to recognize what is a more appropriate way of responding to things.
So there's an open awareness of, as I'm hearing you, with that open awareness, we're creating the assessment, and the assessment shows whether a behavior which is attached to the ego working for us or not working for us. And then based on that, we could start looking at, is the source of this behavior coming from a healthy ego and more of not only our rational and kind of survival mechanism, but also from experience of that kind of like wonder and growth and moving forward versus only a limiting survival mechanism. Is that kind of what I'm hearing from you?
Yeah, yes. And what we know from the science that I reviewed and, have studied is that when you are in this kind of open awareness mental set, that it tends to bypass the systems that we think of as the ego systems, right? There are these networks in our brain that we think are sort of the causes of the kind of self-referential, ego-based thinking that we engage in. When you're in this open awareness, it tends to bypass those kinds of things. And so we have access to a different kind of knowledge rather than this self-referential kind of thing. And it makes us aware of other ways of behaving, other ways of responding to things. Yeah.
Everyone, Controlling Mental Chaos, Harnessing the Power of the Creative Mind by Dr. Jaime Pineda. Dr. Pineda, when we're talking about this open awareness that you share, is this more coming through from like meditative states, alpha states? Is it more like a visualization state? How do we get ourselves into this open awareness state that you're talking about?
Well, right. So the thing to recognize is that, in fact, we have access to it all the time. We're just not conscious of it, right? So imagine if I ask you, are you aware all the processes inside your body that are maintaining your equilibrium, that are maintaining your state of this interior state, so that in a few hours you'll feel hungry and you'll need to eat? There's a whole bunch of things going on in your body that we're not aware of. This is the mindset that I'm talking about, that there's an intelligence to those things that control our body that we're not aware of. But we can have some access to that kind of awareness. and meditation, relaxation, dancing, any kind of activity that puts you in a state of, I don't want to say not thinking, but in a state of where you're not concerned with the rational mind, takes you into that space, and suddenly you can be in touch with this intelligence that is the thing that's controlling your sense of self. Really, 95% of the things that happen are below level of consciousness. Consciousness is only maybe a 5%. And so getting access to that intelligence is sort of what I'm talking about. And so one way is through meditation. So mindfulness meditation, other kinds of meditation, but also exercise, dancing, yoga, all these things can give you some access into that. And the interface that I talk about is intuition. It's because this knowledge that we have, this unconscious intelligence, isn't a rational thing. It's more something you feel. It's something that you emotionally sort of feel it, or intuitively you feel it. And getting access to that, I think, is important. Yeah.
So when we are listening to ourselves, the listening only, if it's just a matter of allowing the ego to speak, then somehow we mistake that ego part of us as all of us. And what you're saying is that's just going to do its job because it's supposed to. Let it be. And then you can also listen to all other parts of you where, like you said, as a baby, we came with that mechanism of the body knowing what to do in order to move forward. Like, I didn't think I have to do something. My intelligence that was in my genes allowed the capability of me going to the next developmental stage. And what I'm hearing from you is like listening to that intelligence that is there through our body, through our genetics that comes. When you allow yourself to listen to that part of yourself and not just the verbiage that shows up consistently as a tape recording of the ego, which is there for a tremendous reason, and not negating the reason and the importance of it. But the part you're talking about is more like if you get caught into that type of a mental chaos, you're limiting yourself.
Absolutely.
And if you expand yourself to listen to the rest of you, that type of an open awareness gives you much more information, which is free flowing, and it expands you in so many other ways. But also, because you're not just focusing on the mental chaos and the gibberish that constantly goes, then you feel kind of like open, the freedom of being you versus just seeing yourself and attaching yourself, associating yourself only with the mental conversation.
Yes, absolutely. Well put. So there's a certain wisdom to that open awareness that we rarely tap into, and that wisdom of is something that we can all get in touch with certain strategies, certain practices, and you begin to realize that that you can deal with problems a little better when you're able to tap into that wisdom, because the wisdom provides a lot of creative energy as well. There's a lot of creativity in open awareness. And we know from studies, for example, that when people practice that, they tend to improve their what we call divergent thinking, which is more related to creativity. They're more creative in that space because it's able to associate things in a novel way, et cetera. And so when you're looking at problems from that perspective, you can begin to see the connections between this and that and the other. Whereas depending too much on rational awareness isn't able to give you that big picture and those insights.
In your book also, you talk about a Ruby method.
Yeah.
Right? So can you share a little bit what Ruby method entails?
Right. So it's my description of the 4 necessary steps to get from what I would say is an uncontrolled mind to a more controlled mind. And the 4 steps are RUBY, which stands an acronym for recognize, understand, balance, and implement. And so I go through what each of these steps are, but I think they're the essence of the steps that one needs to take. There could be others. There are probably many other things that one can do, but to me, that's the essence. So the first recognize is you have to recognize what the problem is, right? And any solution to any problem begins by acknowledging I have a problem. And so what is that problem? And I argue that it's this unhealthy, healthy ego, and learning, how to assess when I'm acting out of one versus the other. So that's the recognize. And then the understand is, my argument is that you need to understand that the ego, that the rational mind is a wonderful tool, but it's limited in resources. It's limited in terms of like working memory, in terms of dealing with multiple things at once. And so we need to understand that there are limitations to this wonderful tool that we try to use for everything, right? And then understand that there's an alternative to that is not as resource limited, that is gives you access to more creative thinking, that it puts you in a state of wisdom rather than, et cetera. So that's the understanding. And then the balance, to me, it's important to recognize that we need both. We can't throw the ego, we can't do away with anxiety, fears, and all that, because they're really useful signals that we can utilize. But we need to find a balance between utilizing those signals, being aware of the signals, and this other sort of open awareness sort of mentality that I'm arguing. So finding a balance between those two is, to me, the right approach. And then finally, the implement has to do with what are the tools, what are the techniques to use, right? And I suggest a variety of tools, and there are, as you can imagine, dozens of other things people have suggested. But to me, mindfulness meditation is the most appropriate and the most effective and kind of straightforward way to get at this open awareness. And so I recommend that, and in the book I give exercises, samples of what one can do to get to that recognition and to that experience. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's RUBY.
Beautiful. So let's go over RUBY again. Is recognition, understanding, and then bringing into balance, and then implementing the balance, actually. And there are exercises into creating that open awareness. The open awareness does the recognition and the understanding and bringing into balance, and then you implement what you've learned consistently, right, in different areas of your life. In your book, you also talk about self-parenting. So it seems like when you're looking at recognizing and understanding and looking at part of maybe the way that the ego has created a system there, we could also see that there's a part of us that needs to kind of bring the wisdom and reparent ourselves, while, if we have been parented a particular way, or we really saw our world as dangerous and the surrounding was dangerous, or we perceived it as dangerous and we needed to take care of ourselves. Sometimes it seems like, we don't know our own strength as we've grown up. And in the model I created, awareness integration, it's the same things. Like you have different parts of you where throughout the years, the ego states got caught into your vulnerability or lack of power, or you experience powerlessness somehow, and somehow it got caught. And although we became powerful in so many other areas of our life, but these things never bridge together. Like we don't have access, in one end we don't have access to the other part. And The self-parenting that you're talking about is when we recognize, when we understand, and how we can bring these parts of us into balance, and we're not caught into one area of that mental chaos from a survival unit, but also checking out in all the other areas that we've actually created something. We've done it. We have the skills, and how we can self-parent ourselves from one part of us to the other.
Yeah.
That's how I kind of understood, because me coming from my own model, kind of going into yours. Can you share your perspective on that, please?
Absolutely. So the way I see it, it is part of recognizing that we do have certain deficits in our personality, perhaps due to the lack of nurturing, the lack of love that we experience as children, and so forth. And so you need to recognize those deficits and then try to do something, because you need to start out with a stable sense, if you will, in order to move to the what I think of as the transformative step, which is the mindfulness, open awareness kind of thing. So you need to prepare the soil. You need to be at a stable level. And so I see self-parenting as that nurturing that you missed, filling in the holes that you might have. And so in the book, I say, well, treat your mind, if it's really chaotic, treat it as a child that's hyperactive, right? And you think of it as a child, you wouldn't be angry at it and punish it and physically or whatever. And it's the same way with your mind. You need to love it. You need to take care of it. You need to learn to love your mind, basically, which is what I think self-parenting does. It helps you accept the fact that you're limited, but that provides a certain stability, which I think is necessary. And so once you have that stability, then you can move on to the next step.
Wonderful. Anything we haven't shared that you like to share with our audience? Anything that is about your book or about your studies and research and your methodology that it didn't show up as we were sharing and you really want people to know?
Yes, I guess the one thing, because I wrote this book both from a professional perspective. I'm a cognitive neuroscientist, so I bring in all the background in cognitive neuroscience that I'm familiar with. I was very interested in psychology, but I also brought in a personal perspective. I've been a practitioner of contemplative practices for a long time, and that perspective, I think, is important, because above and beyond the science, there's this other aspect of beingness that isn't addressed by the science, which I think is addressed more by this contemplative perspective. So when I talk about mindfulness, meditation, and open awareness, there's also a sense that you're connecting with something that's greater than yourself, greater than your, what you are in this body. There's an interaction that you feel with others, with the world, with nature, so you begin to experience not just a resolution to your problems, but also this other wonderful view of, oh, I'm connected to these individuals. I'm connected to this nature. I'm connected to the world. And that's something that's not really talked about sometimes, right? But I think we need to talk about it, experience it, and yeah.
It's interesting you said that. This morning I had a meditative experience, which at the same time, Dr. Pineda, I had this visualization of Earth with all of what is happening, like all seasons, all aspects of nature, all the sceneries, all the animals, all the evolution, from dinosaurs to caveman to, here, human, all beings were there simultaneously. And this message kept coming as it was like, all is here, all at the same time, always, with no temporality dividing them. It's all here, all at the same time, always. and it kept coming, like these word sentences kept coming as the pictures, and then it extended itself to the universe with stars being born and stars ending and dying, and then, all of them happening at the same time. And like you said, it was this grand belonging and the oneness that, like, wow, this is so powerful. And I am a part of this. Wow. I'm just part of it. And it was like every cell of my body was like, shimmering with this wowness.
That's wonderful. That's beautiful.
Yeah, incredible beauty of a visualization that was showing up. So yes, the meditation, the awareness of some of these things is just like shows up, and it really takes us from that concept of hypervigilance of I have to survive,
right?
To this like taking a deep breath and bringing our parasympathetic response, and it's like
and even if you don't experience the kind of experience which you had, which is a marvelous, wonderful, opening, even if you experience a small portion of that, I think it transforms you. It really changes your perspective and how you see others, how you see yourself. And so it's wonderful. And, like for me, these insights have been very gradual. I haven't had what you just had, which is this sort of grand opening of perception, but I've had, a gradual sort of insights into who I am and how I belong to the world and things like that. And it's transformative.
Yeah. I think that a lot of conversations that last night we were having with a group, and someone seriously, like, genuinely was scared about their children being at school and being taught about, like different ways of being, or gender identity issues, or sexuality issues, or just being different. And it was interesting as we were sitting around the table, and I was sensing this genuine fear of survival versus this concept of, there's all of us with different forms who are going to live side by side, and we all can kind of get along and be there and have the right. But more and more, as you were talking, and I was kind of relating it to the things that I've just shared a couple of days. It's this kind of, like you said, the mental chaos of always our ego is there to protect us, but protect us against what? Sometimes it's protecting us against something that we don't really need to be protected against.
Absolutely.
And we could just be open to the wisdom of what you said, the wisdom that shows up, that yes, we all are living, and there's an internal part of us that can be there and connect and not make us so afraid in that way.
No, that I totally agree with that. And the Buddhist, like, again, I practice Buddhism. That's what I know the best, right? And they have this idea that the chaos of the world is actually enlightenment itself, if you can get your mind wrapped around that, right? The idea that when you're suffering, you're actually in the middle of this potential for growth, right? And that experience itself is something that we shouldn't push aside. We shouldn't try to get rid of it. We should live it, feel it, experience it, and it'll take us through to this other thing. So I'm living my life that way.
It's been such a pleasure having a conversation with you. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show.
Thank you. I enjoyed it very much. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you and your audience. So thank you.
Now, how could people find you and your book?
Right. So I have a website, and I can give it to you if you like. And it's the unencumbered unencumbered-mind.com. So the unencumberedmind.com with dashes in between.
Beautiful. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. And for all of you who are out there, create an amazing, wonderful life for yourself and everyone around you. And until next week, bye-bye.
Break free from the forces holding you back. Get the life you deserve. Eliminate stress, reduce anxiety, decrease depression, and start living your full potential. Thousands have used Dr. Foojan Zeine's awareness integration theory, an evidence-based behavioral health breakthrough with incredible life-changing results. Getting rid of past trauma, having fulfilling relationships, increasing earnings, and living their best life. Now, the Foojan app is available to everyone. The app is Dr. Foojan Zeine's awareness integration theory in the palm of your hand. Download the Foojan app today.